Hello and welcome to episode 2, where I'm looking back at the top official rated horses from last National Hunt season. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the chasers. So you can see, even just looking at the list that we've got here, there's 22 horses in the list, 166 is the bottom end of that scale, and 177 is the top. We've actually got a really good crop of chasers at this point of time. And going forward for this season, you can see how many 7-year-olds we've got here. They're horses that will be going on to 8. Even the 8-year-olds going on 9. There's still potential improvement to come from those types. And the 9-year-olds that might be turning into 10, they can still play a hand in some of these big chases as the season goes on. And this is before we've even thought about some of the novice chases from last season. So very excited about what the Stayin Chase in particular season holds ahead. I think we've got some really classy animals, but obviously there's plenty of races for chasers to run in, so there's lots of opportunities for horses to win things. There might be some changes and trips for a few horses, but we're going to take a look through a number of these, and again I'll put some videos up for some of those that I think warrant it. So we're starting at the bottom of the list again. Waiting Patiently was obviously the Wise Guys selection in Kempton, but wasn't a Wise Guys price. 4-1 he was sent off in the end, and I did side with Waiting Patiently in the King George. I did like Clanderzoba at a bigger price, but I thought it would be too much of a step forward for him, so I did side with Waiting Patient. I was obviously gutted when he was unseated in that race. We'll see a clip of that a little bit later on. But, he's then gone on to run at Ascot, where Surnames absolutely spanked him. He got the best of the rest in there, where there was a reasonable field in behind. Cheap pieces for whatever reason at Aintree. I don't think there's anything wrong with his jumping in particular, but they put cheap pieces on. They might not have been using it for that reason. They might want him to focus. But the cheap pieces on for him for Aintree didn't do anything for him. I just hope that this season, they've obviously been minding him because they think he's a really good horse. He's now getting to the point where he's going to be a wasted talent. I just hope they run him in a few races. So I don't know where they'll go with him for this season. They're probably going to be looking at another go at the King George. The Christie Chase, where a lot of the horses will be going, that's where Altior's been talked about, although Hendo's bricking it a bit now. I think Surname's going to go there. But I'd like to see him go around Ascot again for a spin to build him up for Kempton. Although he can go well fresh. So, in the trainer we trust, but I'm just a bit worried that we're never going to see how good he might have been because he's been protected a little bit too much. But he is still an 8-year-old. Politolog, lovely servant. Probably out-surprised me a little bit in the Champion Chase at Cheltenham. But I think tactically Altior going with St Calvados early doors was always going to make things difficult for Altior in the end. And not saying that it flattered him, but that's probably as good as I've seen Politolog run round Cheltenham. He'll be going for the Tingle Creek, and given what other horses might be doing in terms of Altior stepping up for the King George, he's got a very good chance in that particular race. Fox Norton's a horse that I've had a lot of time for throughout his career. He's missed the last 2 festivals through injury, so that's something that's always going to be in the back of your mind. He is now 9 going 10. I just hope we see him again on the track, and he'll probably be going for something like the slower chase at Cheltenham. I do think this horse is tailor-made for the Ryanair, but we'll just have to see how his season goes on. Speaking of the Ryanair, that's where Road to Respect ran last season. He's another one of those that he doesn't quite stay the trip to be a Gold Cup horse. Was a bit fractious before the start of the Ryanair, so I like to watch the horses as they go out. I like to watch them in the prelims, especially for the novices. But yeah, for this particular race, when we watched the Ryanair, we just watched him go down to post, and he wasn't great going down to post. Ran pretty well, to be honest. That was a great finish where Frodan ended up getting the win, but he's another one that's going to be sort of middle-ish distance, I reckon. He'll probably do okay-ish 3 miles, but with the competitive nature that is in Stayin Chase at the moment, he's probably just going to be overshadowed in that position. So maybe they'll campaign him a little bit more at shorter trips and just see what goes with that. This will crack 11 going 12. I mean, I was a massive fan of him when he was a hurdler. His King George win was obviously cracking. He's just too old now, isn't he? Bless him. But, he ran well in the King George last season. That's obviously where they're going to be going. That'll be his probably his last swan song, I would have thought, because you wouldn't really want to be racing him next term. Native River, only place he really can go now is the Welsh National. He'll be carrying a lot of weight. Ran pretty well in the Gold Cup this year, considering the race wasn't run to suit him in the slightest. I don't think he's going to win the Gold Cup because it looks so competitive this year, but he could be a player in there. But Welsh National would be great to see him go around there. It'd be nice to see him do quite well. There's a couple of other Colin Tizard runners that I think could also be earmarked for the Welsh National. They wouldn't be featured in this part of it, but something like Mr. Malarkey, he's only a 6-year-old. I could see him going Ladbroke Trophy, Welsh National, and then in time developing into quite a nice staying type. Mike Bite's going to be a real interesting one this season. They were talking about the fact they're going to drop him in trip. It seems an obvious thing after being pulled up in the Gold Cup. Ryanair screams out for everyone, doesn't it? That's the sort of thing that he's going to go for. But it sounds absurd. I reckon he could go in the Tingle Creek. He's a really good horse round Sandown. I think he's all right at the beginning of the season. Last year when he ran at Haydock in the Betfair Chase, he looked $1 million. You can't overdo it with a horse, but he looked so good and then completely didn't deliver. Fences got the better of him. There's lots of talk about the race for the Gold Cup, where how much that took out of him against Native River. But I don't know. I reckon they're talking about doing something strange with him. I'd like to see him have a little pop in the Tingle Creek. I mean, what middle distance race are you going to go for that's any sort of prestige? The Ryanair's about as good as it gets. They might end up sticking him in the Christie Chase instead of Altior if Altior doesn't go there, and they might still run Altior in the Tingle Creek and then let him go King George. But we'll have to just see how things pan out. But I'd say that if Altior doesn't go for the King George, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mike Pike drop all that way back down in trip. Why not? He's a bit of a law unto himself, but let him go do his thing. So the first horse we're going to pick up on here that we've got a video clip for is Chacun Pour Soi. Plenty of people are talking about this horse. I just find it fascinating that the price that he went off, I can't remember what price I got him for the Punchestown that day. I think it might have been 11-2 or 6-1, something like that. I had him in a double with, you know what I mean, Harry. It was more of a token bet than anything. Obviously the two of them came in. I expected him to be there or thereabouts against Defi de Soy, and I wasn't really particularly worried about the Grey that won the Arc or Duke de Genevra, because I don't think he wins often enough. But obviously you didn't expect him to do it in the way that he did. Now the thing with this horse is it was a really impressive performance. I don't want to really knock it. You can see on his debut, this is Willie Mullins losing this horse's novice status. I think this race at Naas might have been in March as well, but you can see here, regardless of what the field is in behind, he's got them strung right out, going a merry gallop as they turn in. We'll skip a little bit of the race to the second, and we'll see him just jumping. I think it might be the last, but you can see they're all. This is a performance of a proper horse. Now, given that he's a 7-year-old, probably Willie Mullins just thought, you know what, we're not going to stick him straight in at Cheltenham in the deep end. It's not fair to him. Let's stick him in, let him have a run round, and then we'll go for something at Punchestown, which is exactly what they did. But this is the winning distance of a serious animal. It's only his first run for Willie Mullins. Obviously, the second run, we'll see here how far behind the second horse was on that day. But the second run came at Punchestown. We'll see early doors here that he was settled in the back, but you can see that Duke de Genevra is in there as well. You can see that Defi de Soy was sat at the back. They've let all Newer go off in front. The reason I showed that part was obviously the first time he went out and made the run, he was able to force his own pace, but this time he settled in behind. Now, he's travelling the best of anything here. Defi de Soy looks like he's going okay as well. The loose horse didn't help him. He probably lost a few strides with that. But that's a poor jump from Chacun Pour Soi, but he's a novice. That's not as bad a jump as you'd see from most of what these horses have done in this season. He's going nicely here. It's obviously just a case of just easing him into the final flight. And he does pick up quite nicely from the last in the first instance, but this isn't me trying to knock him. He was an impressive performance, don't get me wrong, but he's not flying away with the race, I wouldn't have thought, from that last. He's probably a length and a bit up, and he's probably gone a couple of lengths clear, but very, very good performance all the same. You can see why people are looking at him as a champion chaser, mainly because of the fact that Altior won't be going there, or might not be going there, although I actually do think he would go there. Don't see why he'd go in a Gold Cup. We'll move on to him in a sec. But yeah, this looks like a really, really good animal. Obviously in the right hands of Willie Mullins. The fact that there's been such a gap from when Willie had him and then when Willie's run him as a novice means that he could be a little bit temperamental, or not necessarily that, he might be a little bit difficult to keep sound. So that would be something you'd want to bear in the back of your mind. But yeah, genuine champion chase horse this looks like, but he needs to prove it in better company. Not knocking Defi and not knocking Duke de Genevra, but Defi probably could be good at 2 miles, but he might want a little bit further, and Duke de Genevra isn't that great. So it's a very good performance. 167 had to be that rating because of the 2 festival winners that are in behind. But yeah, still really does need to prove it, but a very, very nice prospect. Bells Hill's a horse that I've loved for a long time. I've just got a bit of a soft spot for him. He's just going to win some races this season. he's just not going to win the big ones for me. He's a very nice type, getting a bit older now. He just doesn't really like it around Cheltenham when we looked at the Gold Cup picture, although I did put him up for that race. ASO's rating is really, really high for what I think he's actually achieved. But in fairness to him, you know, he was another one that ran really, really well in the Ryanair. He was part of that three-way real go with Frodan in that race. The surname race at Ascot, for me, proved that he's completely outclassed in Grade 1s. Then he obviously ran really well at Cheltenham. And not to tarnish the Ryanair, but it isn't the greatest of races at Cheltenham. We know that's not the most prestigious. His rating's clearly been achieved in the fact that he hacked up at Cheltenham in that handicap. So that was a good run from him. His mark's going to be too high to win off of that. He's going to have to run in graded company. I can't see how he's going to get a win. Annabelle Fly, cracking run again in the Gold Cup. It's just a nice horse to have, but you can't, again, not one you're going to expect to be seeing win anything. Probably another little tilt in the National. Now, Frodan is a horse that I've always liked. He went chasing quite young, won lots and lots of races. He was the one that was, I think it was at Kempton, wasn't it, here in the Cheltenham Star Novices Chase when Might Bite went, was it? And then Frodan fell, and then Royal Vacation was gifted the race at 40s, something along those lines. But back then, that was a little bit of a stilt for him. He was only young then. He had a bit of a middle-aged season the season after, but I always fancied this horse to be a Grade 1 contender. When he won that handicap on the 15th of December at Cheltenham, that was a serious weight-carrying performance. Then gladly went and got the Grade 2 win at Cheltenham when he beat Elegant Escape in the Cheltenham, I think it's the Cotswold Chase. And then obviously went and got that Grade 1 win in the Ryanair. Now, they're going to put Frodan in the Betfair Chase at Haydock for the start of the season. He'll get that trip, I'd have thought. It'll be interesting to see him doing there. But he's probably one of those that you could get to peak quite early in the season. You could let him do things at the back end of the season as well. So it's going to be a hard race for him to go and win, given the fact that some of these Stayin Chasers with £1 million dangled again, that they're going to be going there. But that's where Frodan will start the season. Presenting Percy, plenty of people will know that I'm not his biggest fan. He is obviously a cracking horse, but they are a bit like Waiting Patient. I think they might have stuffed him a bit by not racing him last season, or with Waiting Patient, it might have been the season before. But I don't like it when I know horses need to be minded, but he could have run, and that's what frustrates me a little bit. But it wasn't his fault that the injury that he sustained in the Gold Cup. That was where Kemble landed on the back of him. But yeah, he'll be going Gold Cup bound. He'll have his fans again. You know, might pick up another hurdle race. Now, Clan de Zobo, I mentioned him earlier about the King George, the fact that he was a horse that I could have seen running well there. And I remember him running in a handicap at Cheltenham. It was actually, unfortunately, when Starkitect went wrong. Guitar Pete won that day, and that was a decent weight-carrying performance for a younger horse. Now, Paul Nicholls has kind of minded him, and it did feel like this Betfair Chase race. If you look at the horses that are in here, we've got Bristol de Meyer, the course specialist. We've got Native River, the Gold Cup winner. We've got Might Bite, the Gold Cup runner-up. And we've got Thistlecrack in there. Now, this isn't pitching him in for the sake of having a try. This is Paul Nicholls saying, all right, this is your season to start going with it. Let's just see how you get on against the big boys. And he was floundering a bit at the start of this clip. You can see here that he's staying on. It was a lack of fitness in this particular race meant that he wasn't going to finish closer. But that really was a cracking effort. And that's why I gave him a little bit of a chance on the King George. I just thought, again, it's so competitive. He's got a lot to find. I don't know what we were going to do with him. But you can see they're sat at the back with Clan de Zobo here. He was very close to being brought down there. And that's the reason I brought that clip in there. That's where Waiting Patient was brought down. So a bit of luck in running there, but the fact is that's the way that racing goes. Now, he's travelling here like an absolute good thing. I was at Kempton Boxing Day, and we were stood by the last flight. It's the way that you can get back into the car park straight away. So we saw him wing the last. And it's the fact that Harry Cobden holds him together there. I wouldn't say it's a brave thing to do, but given the fact he's up against Thistlecrack, who he knows does stay because he's won a King George, he could have easily sent him on thinking, oh, how are we going to get this last? But look at that for a jump. He saw a stride. He's clean sweeped the last, and he's gone on and won this well. And you can see how much this means to Harry Cobden. He knew that he was bullish about this horse beforehand, and he loved that. And it was really nice to see him do what he should be doing. He then went and ran at Ascot, and this is where he's running against Terrafort, I believe. This is the point I'm making of this to show the early parts of it, is the fact that he was up there with the run-in. The rest of the horses are non-events in this. this winning victory or the winning margin probably flatters him a little bit because Jacob does give up as soon as Clandazobo's gone past. But again, Harry Cobden's just nice and calm with him, gets a jump out of him at the last, and then you'll see Jacob will have a little look in a second. He's not even riding him now. And, you know, Clandazobo's gone on and done what he's got to do. So, really nice prospect again for this season. The main aim for him is going to be Kempton for the King George again. And I just think he's a really nice type. And, you know, I think that the King George will suit him down to the ground. I just still worry about him around Cheltenham. So this is a cracking effort. You can see there where all the other races where he was travelling on the bridle until the later stages. This is a further trip for him. He is still a relatively unexperienced horse. He's run well to get to this point. Not the greatest of the jumps there, but he's still going okay here. You can see we've got Native River on the inside that we know is a Dower Stayer. We've got Annabelle Fly on the outside that's flying home. We know they're Dower Stayers. And if we just watch him from the last, big jump there to get himself over, so that's not necessarily one of a tired horse. And you can see the way that he's staying on. He's not losing that many lengths with the horses in and around him. And these, like I say, are horses that are Dower Stayers. So for me, it's not completely ruled out and not inconceivable that he could go and be a Gold Cup contender. He would need to step forward, but I think there's every chance that he can. He then went and ran at Aintree, so bit of a busy campaign to run at two of the festivals, especially after a Gold Cup. But you can see him mistily towards the back, not really travelling. Kenboy's absolutely spanked him here. And I would just say that he must have been over the top going into Aintree. You know, that race in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, the way that he stayed on, all those sorts of things. I know Mike White came to Aintree and won after, but he can't really go with him at this point. But you look at some of the horses that are in and around him that he's beaten them before. I just feel like he was over the top there. Again, this is a reasonable run. You could say to him, this is actually an okay effort, considering the fact that he'd had a busy spring, really. But you can see him staying on there again, and this is where the stamina thing doesn't really seem like it's a problem for me, because Harry Cobden keeps going with him, and he does get up for second in the end. So Kenboy spanked him there. I don't know how you could beat Kenboy on that, but Kenboy obviously falling early on after one of the flights means that he went there a bit of a fresher horse. So it's not inconceivable that Clandazobo could try and reverse that sort of form, but early in the season, Clandazobo round Kempton's going to be a cracker. Now, Bristol Demise been around for, seems like forever, 8 going on 9. Betfair Chase will be the aim of him again, and I'm glad they did run him in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, because they poo-pooed the idea of it last season. I think there was even talk of him going on a national, all those sorts of crazy things, but he's a good horse, and that's the top and the bottom of it. He was obviously a faller in the King George. He was kept fresh to go in at Cheltenham, and that might be the key with this horse. It might be better to keep him fresh. They will have to go for the Betfair Chase. He'll run well in that, may well go and win that. If he does, they'll have to go in the King George, and then he'll go Cheltenham. I can't see any reason why they do anything different with him. He ran really well to finish third in the Gold Cup, but I don't know. I think he's always going to be a bit of a nearly horse, and I think last season could be potentially the best season that he's going to have. Undersow's an absolute weapon of a horse. We all love him. 11 going on 12. I don't even know if they'll keep racing him this season. Tiger Roll, the absolute boy, 171 rated, and he's going to be going in the Grand National. He's just a freak of a horse. We all know this. Cross country's on the agenda. Grand National's on the agenda. I don't see why he won't win both. It's going to be a hell of a weight carrying performance in there. But the form that he was in last season, Jesus, he's one of them that you just look at and think, freak. And people were toying with it, saying that he'd win a Gold Cup, stick him in a Gold Cup. I wouldn't be completely convinced in that, because at the end of the day, the Grand National is a handicap, and the cross country's for rogues of horses in most cases. But he's obviously a weapon of a horse, and you can see with his chase rating there, he's amongst the best. Now, before we move on to some of the bigger boys in the Gold Cup frame, we'll just spend a little bit of time talking about Min. I was in the Min camp when Min met Altior in the Supreme. Tiny backstory to that. I backed Maputo, who suffered a fractured leg or a broken leg against Altior when they ran on, I think it might have been Trials Day at Cheltenham, or maybe the December meeting. He ran in a Supreme trial anyway. Only got beaten half a length by Altior. The injury was sustained in the run-up. I still think Maputo would have beaten Altior that day. And obviously we know Altior hasn't been beaten over obstacles. So bit of a sore spot with that. I couldn't really get on the Altior bandwagon early doors, but I've always liked Min. But from an early stage, it wouldn't have taken a genius to work out that you've got to be a bit careful with this horse. His novice chase season was cut short after an injury, so we didn't get to see the whole world of him then. But then he's come back and he's winning races, and then he gets turned over when he shouldn't, and then he goes and wins a couple of races, and then he gets turned over and doesn't really show a performance. So you'd always have to bear that in mind with Min, that we don't really know what you might get with him in terms of performances. But we can take a look back at some of the races that he performed in last season, and he's a very keen-going horse. The majority of things that you'll hear from people, they say the reason they run him over 2 miles quite often is because he's so keen, and he wouldn't settle over a slightly slower pace over 2 mile 4. And you can see here, this is the beginning of the season. Very tight a room there, but he's brave. He's gone through that. I think he's just a nice horse. What they should be doing with him this season is running him at the middle trip. There's obviously different races that they could be going for in between, but he just needs to be campaigned. I mean, you don't really want to say it, but like I say about the prestigiousness of a Ryanair, but I think he just needs to be campaigned with those sorts of races in mind. They need to just agree to go for 2.5 mile with him, and if they decide to send him on, then they decide to send him on. But this particular race here at Leopardstown, you can see him settled at the back. He had Special Tiara and St Calvados in the race. It was never going to be short of pace for him. They're going to go quick enough for him. Now, I know in the Queen Mother, which we'll see in a second, St Calvados went off in front and made the pace, but they tactically got that wrong, and Willie Mullins said that straight after the race, that they'll do a change of tactics when he goes at Aintree. I unfortunately did miss that comment at the time, which meant I didn't get stuck into him at Aintree like I should have done, but he's okay getting a bit of a lead, I think, but it's just those 2 mile races. He's beating horses over 2 miles here, but he's not beating the worldies. He's not going to beat Altior over it. He's not going to beat some of the better 2 mile chasers. So again, here early we can see that he's there. The only way I thought Min could beat Altior at Cheltenham was if Min could get in front of him, and Nico probably knew this, which is why he went up with the pace of St Calvados. You don't want to be doing that with a horse, which is probably why Altior's performance is great in the fact that he won, but with great respect to the horses around him, Politolog and So shouldn't really have been getting that close to him, in my mind. You can see Min at the back's not finding anything. He's just not able to show that turn of foot over 2 miles. He should have been travelling into the race a bit better than that, but it was one of them. They went quick. Some of the horses from the back can go along with it, like Politolog and So did. Some of them can't, and Altior's obviously just an absolute beast. So Min can't win a champion chase, but if Altior doesn't go there for whatever absurd reason, then they're going to probably be thinking it. But here he is at Aintree over 2 mile 4. Ruby's just gone on and just said, what, let's just go on and get on with this. But look how he's travelling here. Now, that's Politolog in second, that we saw what he did in the champion chase, waiting patiently in those first-time cheat pieces. And that's Hell's Kitchen further back that I would have expected to have gone on and made the run-in, to be honest. But you can see how well he's travelling here. You can see that he's going. We all know that he's a very good horse. They just got to look at these middle trip races for him throughout the season, I think. It wouldn't be beyond my belief that I think he could stay a little bit further as well. But to jump into that division at this stage in his career, when it looks the most competitive region that it's ever looked, I don't think they will do that. But yeah, 2.5 miles is what they should do with him all season. Let's just go and get him a Cheltenham Festival win, because I think he deserves it. He's a nice type. And look, he's spanked Politolog there at Aintree. So that's the thing with him. His best performance of the season was there at Aintree. I've skipped the Punchestown clip where he got beaten by Underso. Probably shouldn't have done that, to be honest. But Underso's, he's just a beast of a horse. He was gone in front, and you can't let those sorts of horses over 2 miles do that. Underso's got the turn of foot to go with an Altior over 2 miles when he's in front. Min doesn't have that sort of turn of foot. So I think the middle trips, they've got to go for him. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed a little bit further. You look at his records, to be fair, on that sort of trip. He won at Aintree. He's won at Punchestown over 2 mile 4. Neck beaten by Politolog at Aintree again. Hacked up, I mean, it's against Flax and Fair 1-9 over 2 mile 4. So his record over the middle trip is 3 wins, 1 second, and that 1 second came a neck. So that's where he's got to be going this season. So now, without further ado, we're going to jump into the proper Stayin Chasers, and this is where it just gets so exciting for this season ahead. Altior obviously will come on to him straight away, but just before we look at his clips, let's just re-emphasise the fact that Altior is an absolute beast. He's the same rating as Album Photo, but Album Photo is above him for the alphabetical order. There's 2 horses higher rated than him. There's Surname and there's Kenboy. They're all 7-year-olds. The 3 horses that are above him on this list are 7-year-olds. So they've got more improvement in him. And they're not just a year behind, they're a couple of years behind him. So, not saying that Altior's going to be on the decline. I like the fact they're probably going to go King George with him. You might as well have a little popped. It would learn legendary status for me if he goes and wins a King George and then comes back and wins a 3rd champion chase. That's what I think they will have to do with him this season. The Hendo comment sounded like he was going to go Christie Chase. Now that he knows he's going to have some competition there in Surname, it's not going to happen, or I don't think it will definitely happen. Don't know where they'll get him a run, but maybe he will go there. But I just feel like if Henderson wants him to lose his status to get beaten, he wants him to get beaten in the King George. He wouldn't want to get beaten by Surname in the Christie Chase. That's part of it. And at the end of the day, a trainer should be training the horse and running him in the races, what's going to be the best prep for him, all those sorts of things. But I think that will probably happen with him. So we'll talk about Altior in his own right. This was the Tingle Creek at the beginning of the season, and this was just a stonking performance. I was there that day. It was windy, it was rainy as the race went off. No disrespect to the horses that are in behind, but they weren't going to be involved in this, especially in those conditions. Underso, for me, I know he's won lots of races, but this was one of the best performances I've seen Underso put in as well. It's just the tenacity of Altior in the class. So here you've got Underso, probably a little bit in front there, but when Altior decides to go, he decides to go. And this was obviously a test, this particular race, because of the conditions. He always does this at Sandown and bolts up the hill. He does look like a horse that will appreciate a little bit further, but that's him at the beginning of the season, and he always looks pretty smart at the beginning of the season. I'm not saying that he tails off typically as the year goes on, but he's good at Kempton again here. I just think at the beginning of the season, when we go through these clips and we'll watch him, his performances are much more rounded and they're much more convincing at the beginning of the season. I think he did have 5 runs last term, so you can forgive him for what happens at the end of the season at Sandown. He obviously still goes and wins it, but this is Altior. Just he loves it at Kempton, doesn't he? And I think where I was saying about the stamina thing, he's beaten some good horses in here, and we had Diego de Charmille behind. He likes it round Kempton. He's got to go for the King George. I think he could win a King George, but it's going to be very competitive, as I've already mentioned. I think he could win a King George. Can he win this King George? We don't know. Now, at Ascot, there was the suggestion about him jumping left, and Nicky Henderson's joked about the fact that we'll blame Special Tiara. He taught him that at Kempton. It wasn't anything that particularly worried me in the main, but it is obviously a slight concern. You don't want to be doing it. However, thinking of the Cheltenham picture, Champion Chase, it's a left-handed track. If you're going to jump one way, you want to jump left. Now, Fox Norton was in behind. He was having his reappearance before he went and ran against Surname in that Ascot race. This was pretty good from Fox Norton, I thought, but Altior's just not going to get beaten here, and this is a very nice performance. And like I said, I do like Fox Norton. I do think he's half decent, and he's put him to bed quite nicely. Now, in this Champion Chase race, I know we've already seen a clip of this, but I just like the fact that he's got up against St Calvados early because he probably knew that maybe Min might go in front of him, all those sort of things. He's just alleviated all the doubt that he's in front, no one's going to go in front of him because no one's going to take on St Calvados at Cheltenham. He's probably caused himself to have to dig into real reserves here, but I think him staying on here is just all stamina. To be able to be up with that pace early on shows what an animal he is, and then to be able to stay on like that at the end is just fantastic. Now at Sandown, this is what I mean about seeing his performances maybe not dwindle, but they're not as impressive towards the end of the year. Nico sends him on quite early here, which isn't something we see him do very often with Altior, as you've seen in those other clips. Gets okay-ish into that flight there, but you can see that he's not pulled away. If anything, the distance is closed and quite significantly. But again, up this Sandown hill, he loves it. He flies up. It was just that, maybe that a bit of a tired horse, but it's this staying on at the latter stages of the races. He does want a bit further now. He'll get away with it at Cheltenham, but I don't think he'd get away with it in Cheltenham in a Gold Cup. So, cannot win a Gold Cup for me. I reckon he could win a King George and then go back and win a Champion Chase. And if he gets beaten a King George, then he'll just go back to the Champion Chase anyway. But for me, I think he will be going to the Champion Chase this season. Obviously, the big sticking point is if he goes and wins a King George and he wins it comfortably, then you go for the Gold Cup. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. At this point, as it stands, I think he could win a King George. He'll at least be competitive in a King George. I don't think he'd win a Gold Cup. So Champion Chase, the third time for him. Immortality lies and awaits for Altior. So on to the big boys: Album Photo, Surname, and Kemboy. Now, it's interesting with these top hurdlers, the top official rated horses, because when we were looking at the hurdlers, we'll just fly back to it. Espoir de l'Âme, Voix du Nord, top rated hurdler, and in the chase division, Voix du Nord, Scott Kemboy. But another side that's in there that's no longer with us, Nickname, was trained by Martin Brazil. He was a Grade 1 winner, I think, over fences. I'm pretty sure he was. He's the sire of Surname. He's the sire of Frodan. As I say, he's no longer with us, so he's no longer producing offspring. So it's a shame, because I think he could have been an absolute weapon of a sire. But you typically get these sort of things. People like certain types of size, but in this area that we've got here with all these great chases at the moment, I think it is a golden era potentially. We've got all these 7-year-olds. It's just nice to see someone like Nickname be in there with a couple of runners pulling up his name. Both Frodan and Surname are 7-year-olds. It's just a shame that we won't see any more of him because he could have been something really special as a sire in this game. But we'll squeeze on to Album 30. He only had the couple of runs last season. And this was a nice performance. So this is over a shorter trip. I think this is over 2.5. There was question marks when he ran at Cheltenham in the RSA, and he was the horse that broke Ruby's leg. Now, whether he should have gone the RSA or the JLT, I thought the RSA was the right choice for him. I actually thought he ran pretty well in behind Presenting Percy, to be honest. And he was a bit novice. He made mistakes, all those sorts of things. But this performance for a comeback, total recalls in behind, so not going to be a worldie, but you know it's not a terrible yardstick. A total recall's another horse that would probably want a bit further as well, to be honest. But it's just nice here that he's run quite well. Slowishy jump there. You can see as they're coming in, he's having to be ridden along, but he does start to pick up. So I like that in the horse, the fact that he's got that sort of middle distance pace as well. Really good there. He swerved towards the cameraman, and obviously he ran out the season before at Punchestown. So little quirk in the mind. Maybe he doesn't concentrate completely, but he's travelling the best of anything in the Gold Cup as they're coming towards the last couple. He looked like he was the winner from about here. It was probably just a slight question mark about his stamina, but there you can see he's having to be bustled a little bit to go round. Not saying he didn't have a clear passage, and we're not saying that he's a bit of a coward, but I don't know whether he is the bravest of horses, but let's not knock him. He's gone and won a Gold Cup. It's a sloppy jump again there to get himself over 2 out. But the thing is, he's made a sloppy jump. The fact that he's travelled so well into the race is what's won him there, and the class that he's in there. And this was a really good Gold Cup. But let's not forget that. We're all getting excited before it. He's absolutely pinged the last there. And again, I've mentioned before about Native River and Annabelle Fly, about staying horses. But you can see Album Photo here. The other horses that are in behind, so Bristol Demai, all of those sorts of types, they're not really getting closer to him. Annabelle Fly is the only one that's closing in on a bit. Album Photo's got every chance of doing the double, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in between. But here at Punchestown, which is Ruby Walsh's last victory, where Kenboy goes and wins, he's kind of close enough there, you think, for a horse that's going to stay, but whether the Gold Cup took that much out of him, I don't know. Kenboy obviously had an easy time of it at Aintree, but you can see the two of them are going at it here. Punchestown has obviously got enough undulations in it, but I don't think it's as testing as track as Cheltenham. You can see here where they're being ridden up and going up towards the line. Obviously, Paul Townend wants to win it, but maybe he knew a little bit. Maybe Ruby's going to retire if I let him get this one. All joking aside, though, Kenboy's not massively putting away from him. So I think that's just great form for both those two. I think they're both really, really nice horses, and that's really why they're where they are in the official rating. So don't 100% know what the plans would be of him, but I wouldn't be certain to see him come over for the Betfair Chase. I think that would probably suit Kenboy more of the Mullins pair. Before we go on to him, we'll squeeze into Surname. Now, the only real thing that I wanted to bring to light about Surname is these are his 2 performances when he runs at Ascot. It was a renewed performance. So the one on the left is in a handicap. The reason I put these 2 side by side is they jumped those flights at the same sort of time. It's to show you when he's jumping the flight. So everything's sort of happening at the same speed, and that's a grade 1 where he goes and achieves the highest rating, and the picture on the left is from a handicap. So for him, he's out in front, he's doing his own thing, and he's running the same sort of pace. And it's really good judgment by Harry Cobden, in fairness. You can see the other horses in behind where a few of them are travelling in, waiting patiently. He's there on his hindquarters. But again, just look at where they're jumping it. So he's coming into that, and he's jumped that pretty much the same in a handicap, and when he's done this at Ascot. And you can see him keep going and keep going and keep going here. So in both pictures, he's being ridden probably about the same. He's just being nudged to go and get the last. But he's accelerated away from a proper field there. And you can see there that he's jumped that in front of when he jumped the handicap. The handicap is being eased down now. And you can see him flying home in this race in the Grade 1. And he's being eased now. It's obscene that he did that to those types of horses, because they can't have all run bad, and the handicapper had to put him where they had to put him. It is a slight thing with him that maybe he's better right-handed, and it is another slight thing with him that since he's had the hood removed, he's been a completely different horse. So I've talked about this in my horses to follow this year for horses that wear hoods when they're youngsters. Last race in France when he won, he wore a hood. Ever since then, he's worn a hood. And he's run well in races. He achieved 150 odd. But he never really did everything. And sometimes horses need the hood to make them switch off. Maybe they're a bit quirky, all those sort of things. But Nichols has said that he's been a little bit difficult to train. He finally felt like he got a little bit better. He had run twice that season before they took the hood off to stick him in that handicap. But he's a different horse now the hood's off. He doesn't need it. He knows his business. He knows what he's getting up to. He wasn't really challenged in that last race at Ascot, the Grade 1 that he won, where there was a decent field in behind. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in the hustle and bustle of things with him. But he's going to be going for the Stayin Chase at Ascot because he loves it round there, and then he's got to be going for the King George. So Paul Nicholls has got two real live darts to put in there. The way that Surname improved last season with that hood coming off, you could see that happening again, but there is obviously a bit of a quirk about him. He has been difficult to train before, all those sort of things. So it will be interesting to see if he can sustain that high rating that he's got. And Kenboy, the top-rated horse in there, it's fantastic for the Supreme Horse Racing Club. He's just a joy to watch. Now, I've chucked in quite an early clip, I think, here of one of Kenboy's races because I think I did anyway. There's one where he clatters the last and Townend's got his arms out either side. And I think the reason that I was going to put that particular clip in was the fact that he's come on such a long way since his novice days. His Aintree performance was as good a performance as you're going to see for most of the seasons. So there, you can look, Townend's got both arms off of him there. He's absolutely walked for that. How he stayed on him, I don't know. But he used to make a lot of mistakes. And it's good when we're watching these clips here to see horses' progression. And no horse has progressed more than Kenboy last season. So showing you that one because he's fiddled his way over there a little bit. He's a little bit slow after. You can see he's a little bit skew there. But he's going on and he's running well in these races. He's winning races. The more that we watch him, the more you'll see that he's an improved horse, and he's looking more like a rounded horse. Now, he's another one, 7 going on 8. I know I've said it multiple times in here, but the best is yet to come from this horse. Now, this is the race where I think it was Danny Mullins or David Mullins made the wise choice to go around the outside of him. You can see him settled out the back there. He was far too keen. You can see him throwing his head about there. And, you know, you will go out there with a plan, these jockeys, with what they're going to do with him. But, you know, if your horse is pulling its head off, you've got two options. You get him to settle or you stick him out in front. And the only option I've ever considered for a horse that's pulling your arms out is just let them go out in front because they're not going to win by using all that energy. So smart move to sweep round the field here. And this was a decent field, let's not forget that. But the most important thing is he's travelled a distance to get to this point before he's gone past him. And in that point, he's been pulling away. So he has exerted some energy. But now he's been given a free rein to go off in front. He calms himself down a bit. He's enjoying himself. And probably before, when he was younger and as a novice, with some of those mistakes that he used to make, it would be a bit risky with him. We'll see Road to Respect in the middle there. It's massively like stumble, and that wasn't nice for him because he ran a cracking race in behind. But you'll look at the horses here. Decent jump there from Kenboy, but start looking at all the riders around him now. Most of them are starting to get to work on their horses. Kenboy's still there. He's travelling, and you can see the way the horse has got his head up and he's leaning to this side. He's full of it. And it was after this performance that lots of people obviously were saying, well, was it a fluke because of the pace and all those sorts of things of it? Got the run of the race up front, and was he going to be a Gold Cup horse? Well, we didn't find out the answer at Cheltenham, but if you just look at this performance here, he's still travelling going into this last flight. There's enough horses close to him that are staying types that could have got to him if they wanted to, but look how much energy he's still got left. Look at the pace of him just drawing clear there. That was a serious performance, and lots of us doubted it at the time. Was it really that good? Was it just a cute ride? All those sorts of things. But that is a serious performance. Now, here on the inside, you can see he jumps, but he goes down after the flight. So he didn't fall, and I think he clipped into the back of Presenting Percy, which is what caused him to go lame. So we never found out anything at Cheltenham, but it put him in good spirits for Aintree, not having that particular race. And look at him out in front again. He's putting proper horses to the sword here. And the way, again, there, Ruby gives him a couple of slaps. And the way that he quickens clear at the end is a pacey horse. So I know he's the top-rated horse in train at the moment, and that came after doing this to the reigning Gold Cup champion. He does look a serious horse. And again, he's another bit here where he's travelling nicely. And we obviously have already seen this clip when we were looking at him with album photo, and he's a little bit kind of sloppy over that. He gets into it a little bit low on there, but he gets away with it. And then when he is being asked to go away, you can see with the horses that are in behind him, and album photo were pulling away from them slightly. He is beating the Gold Cup winner. He's got a nice jump there. He's got the lead in front. Alban Fert is probably just chasing him home. But, this is a proper performance. And although he did miss the Gold Cup, he did run at Aintree. So I just think it was a serious performance from Ken Boy. He deserves to be at the top of the ratings. It's nothing new or fantastic that you guys would have been hearing from most of the horses that I've talked about in here. The ratings are there for a reason. Sometimes I can dispute them slightly over hurdles. Sometimes with the lower points of them, where you get some handicap horses like your ASOs, I think they might be inflated ratings because of those handicaps. But the picture for this season is we've got loads of 7-year-olds in here that are looking progressive, and we're going to see the best of them potentially this season. Well, I think we will. We've got some established 8-year-olds in there that look like they can still offer more, and we've got some 9-year-olds in there that they can still throw their hat in the ring, and they're still going to show that they can kick it with the big kids. So we've got some really, really nice races this season. The Betfair Chase at Haydock's going to be a cracker. I wanted to go there last year because it was such a good field, and I didn't. This year I'm probably going to go to the Coral Hurdle at Ascot. It's a bit easier for me to get to, and that's on the same day. But if Ken Boy comes over, I'm going to Haydock to watch the Betfair Chase. So we've got all of that. I'll be at Kempton for the King George. I cannot wait to see that. I've got lots of bits and pieces in there. It's just a really exciting start to the season. Some of those middle trip races are going to be really interesting to see when these horses move by the wayside. But until they go in against each other, so Betfair Chase, there's races over in Ireland. So there's is it the Red Mills Chase at Down Royal. I think that's where they're going to be going with Clan de Zobo. They do all right over there, and that's right-handed. So, they've got pictures for... There's Irish horses that we've taken on English early doors. I think by Christmas we'd have seen a few match-ups where they'd have been taking each other on. Get a few more clues towards the big spring festivals, but it's a fantastic-looking season. We've only covered the chasers and the hurdlers so far in these 2 episodes, and especially in this division, the Stayin Chase division. The novice chasers, when we come onto that, and we even talk about the 3 runners in the RSA, it's mouth-watering to imagine for the season coming up. So this has been a slightly longer episode than I planned it to be, but, I got to get it all out. It needs to be said. I'll get the next couple of episodes. We've got the novice hurdlers and the novice chasers. I'm going to try and get them both recorded tomorrow, and we'll get them out one tomorrow, and we'll get one out on Sunday, or maybe get them both out on Sunday. But thanks again for listening. If anyone's managed to get through the whole session of this, I appreciate any feedback. Is there anything you think I could do differently or do better? Like your opinions on all the horses as well. And it's 4 weeks until Chepstow, till the season starts. Although when you're watching this, it'll be 27 days. But thanks again for all your support, guys. I do really appreciate it. And thanks again if you managed to stay this long watching it.